Now at 6 and streaming on CrossroadsToday.com, homeowners in Queen City report trespassing and theft often linked to the homeless, what the city and local activists have to say. And authorities in DeWitt County announcing a reward for the recovery of stolen property. Plus, the Supreme Court weighs in on presidential immunity, what this means for former President Donald Trump.
Well, the big news in the tropics is Hurricane Beryl. Beryl is now rolling over the Windward Islands. It's now back out into the Caribbean as a Category 4, will likely strengthen to a 5 and then head toward the Gulf of Mexico. You and I are going to have to be watching Beryl pretty much all week long. We'll have the latest coming up in just a few minutes.
And the Houston Astros with an incredible turnaround, now breathing down the Mariners' neck. It's an NBA free agency coming up in sports.
You're watching 25 News Now at 6. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Karina Garcia. Don Brubaker is in Ireland. The DeWitt County's office announced a reward for the recovery of some stolen property between June 25th and June 27th. A 2009 camouflage mule single bench ATV and a 2014 black/orange lifted Polaris 900EX and a 16-foot black dual axle trailer were stolen on Terryville Church Road in DeWitt County. If you have seen or recognize the above property, please contact the DeWitt County Sheriff's Office at 361-275-5734, or to remain anonymous, contact Crime Stoppers at 361-275-0880. Now, homeowners in Queen City have long dealt with crime, often linked to the homeless population. The city of Victoria has a plan to address these issues, but community leaders and activists say this new plan might not hold all the answers. For years, homeowners in the Queen City area near Christ Kitchen have complained about trespassing and theft issues. Some of the people who frequent the area are homeless, and now the city of Victoria has a plan to address these issues near Queen City Park. This follows reports of dangerous or violent behavior. Kim Pickens, director of the community outreach at the Humility Project, who is actively working to ease the homeless population in Victoria, says the concern in Queen City has been an issue for years. And while she does not deny that crime does occur, Pickens says most of it is from people just passing by and not from those in the area.
Everybody deserves to live somewhere that they feel safe, and that also goes for our friends that are outside who don't have a roof over their head. I haven't seen anything violent come through from the Queen City area, and some things that are maybe just like petty theft kind of things.
Steps that the city has taken to address the situation include increased police monitoring, enforcement of state laws related to public camping, enforcement of city codes to address health and safety hazards, discussing no trespassing enforcement options, communicating with Christ Kitchen and Queen City residents to better understand their needs, and continuing to host community events in Queen City Park. The city is also exploring the possibility of establishing a neighborhood watch program in the area and instituting a curfew for the Queen City Park. But Pickens says this would not provide a solution, but rather criminalize the homeless. She also adds that the lack of affordable housing and the lack of shelters in Victoria all directly contribute to the homeless population.
I don't think that the measures will be effective because, like I said, the thing is there are people who don't have anywhere else to go. Right now, the Salvation Army is the only emergency shelter we have, and it's specifically for men, and they have been full at capacity for a while now.
In a previous interview, Pickens added that Victoria has a large population of people living below the poverty line. That's including the elderly, the disabled, and single parents. And now let's take a look at your forecast with First Warn Storm Team Chief Meteorologist Mac Perez.
Well, thank you very much. Good afternoon, folks. Well, as I mentioned, the big story is Hurricane Beryl. Beryl is right about here. It's a Category 4 right now. There's only 5 on the scale. But watch what happens. It's already gone over the Lesser Antilles with 150-mile-an-hour winds, and now as a Category 4, it cruises through the Atlantic, maybe peaking at a 5, and then decreasing to a 2 and a 1 before it rolls into the Yucatan Peninsula. After that, guess what? It gets into the Gulf of Mexico. Somewhere between Brownsville and Tampico, I believe it's going to strike Mexico. Close to what Alberto did, and we'll certainly have to be watching it all week long. More details on it coming up after this.
Mac, thank you. The Supreme Court rules a president has absolute immunity for core constitutional powers, not for unofficial acts. This case is tied to former President Trump's election interference case. This is one of the biggest rulings of this year.
In a 6-3 decision from the Supreme Court, the justices issuing a hybrid ruling on the case of presidential immunity, while ruling the president has absolute immunity for core constitutional powers. With the opinion of the court, Chief Justice John Roberts writes, the president enjoys no immunity for his unofficial acts, and not everything the president does is official. The president is not above the law. In dissent, Justice Sonia Sotomayor writes, it makes a mockery of the principle foundation to our Constitution and system of government that no man is above the law.
A very big win for former President Trump, recognizing for the first time this sort of immunity of ex-presidents from criminal prosecution.
The decision stems from a January 6th election interference case where Trump faces 4 felony charges, including conspiracy to defraud the U.S. and obstruction of an official proceeding. It's tied to his alleged attempts to overturn the 2020 election. Trump has pleaded not guilty. The Supreme Court asked to determine if Trump is immune from criminal prosecution. During oral arguments in April, the Department of Justice argued granting absolute immunity would put a president above the law. In a series of hypotheticals, Trump's legal team argued presidents should have absolute immunity for official acts.
If the president decides that his rival is a corrupt person and he orders the military or orders someone to assassinate him, is that within his official acts that for which he can get immunity?
It would depend on the hypothetical, but we can see that could well be an official act.
And the Supreme Court is ordering the lower courts to figure out exactly how to apply today's ruling to Trump's immunity case, delaying a case that's already been delayed until possibly after the election. Perry Russum, ABC News at the Supreme Court.
Now, it appears most Americans have negative views of the Supreme Court. In a poll released last week, only 16% of U.S. adults say they have a great deal of confidence in the High Court. 40% surveyed in the Associated Press National Research Center poll say they had hardly any confidence at all. On elections and voting, confidence dropped to 63%, which is similar to the number on abortion and gun policy. Meanwhile, 70% believe the justices are more likely to shape the law to fit their own ideologies. Bringing us to your viewer poll this afternoon. The question is, what are your views regarding the Supreme Court? Are they positive, negative, or neutral? We want to hear your opinion on this. Come to crossroadstoday.com/vote to take part. This July 4th travel period could be record-setting. AAA's forecast covers June 29th through July 7th. It predicts more than 70 million Americans will go 50 or more miles from home during that time. That would be the most ever for this holiday. The Transportation Security Administration says it expects to screen more than 32 million passengers from June 27th through July 8th. One complication for vacation goers is that weather. That includes heat advisories in several states. Today, more flooding in New Mexico in this year's Atlantic season first named hurricane. U.S. prosecutors plan to seek a guilty plea from Boeing over a charge tied to 2 fatal crashes of 737 MAX planes. The U.S. Justice Department plans to formally offer a plea arraignment, which includes a financial penalty and imposition of an independent monitor to audit the company's safety and compliance practices for 3 years. The decision came after the Justice Department found that Boeing violated a 2021 agreement that had shielded it from prosecution over the fatal crashes involving 737 MAX jets. The deadly crashes took place in 2018, killing 346 people. A rocket being tested in China Sunday accidentally lifted off from the launch pad due to a structural failure before crashing and exploding. This video shows the moment of the accident in central China. The rocket climbed into the air before appearing to lose power and falling back to Earth, where it exploded. Beijing Tianping, also known as a space pioneer, says there was no reported injuries. Parts of the rocket stage were scattered within a safe area, but it did not cause a local fire. Now, just ahead of the 4th of July, people in one town near Dallas are lining the streets with tens of thousands of American flags.
And I guess we could sign do, like signing up people? Or...
It's a busy and colorful time of the year for Nell Ann Hunt.
I'll hand this to you.
She's been organizing Irving's Great Flag Caper since 1992.
Our theme is we don't live in America, America lives in us.
These flags will be in front of homes, businesses, and places of worship throughout Irving to celebrate the 4th of July. Everyone from seniors to toddlers and wagons will plant flags.
We place flags all up and down MacArthur as a sign of unity for our city. We don't have we don't have a north or south Irving. We just have one big hometown of patriotism.
Not one flag, but about 40,000 of these American flags will line the streets of Irving, and volunteers say it is the message behind it that means the most.
I hope people remember that a lot of people died for our flag. It's good to have the memories.
Volunteer Tony Roten has been planting flags and patriotism for 5 years.
I hope it brings people together. When I've been planting flags before, I've had people from different countries stop me as I plant flags and ask me about it.
It's important to value our country. A lot of times people accentuate the negative parts of our country, and instead of remembering that this is the greatest country in the world.
The flag planting continues through July 3rd. In Irving, Dawn White, CBS News, Texas.
The parent company of DVD rental vendor Redbox is filing for bankruptcy. Chicken Soup for the Soul Entertainment, which owns Redbox, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection Friday. In that filing, the company disclosed it was nearly $1 billion in debt, and that owes millions of dollars to several entertainment companies. Redbox has reportedly not been paying employees for a week, and medical benefits have already been suspended. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Crossroads Today. Hit the like button and click that notification bell. For now, stay with us. In today's Health Minute, more on what everyone should know about the potential dangers of taking aspirin every day. That's straight ahead on 25 News Now at 5. Also ahead, Disney's Pixar breaking records at the box office this weekend. We take a look at those numbers next. For the first time, it calls on doctors to rely on biomarkers from lab tests or brain scans rather than pen and paper tests of memory and thinking. But this means people could be diagnosed with Alzheimer's based on a blood test alone, even if they don't have memory difficulties. Experts point out that it's unclear whether giving a person expensive medications before they show symptoms will benefit them in the long run. Now, over the past 5 years, recommendations on low-dose aspirin have changed. A new study suggests that some seniors still taking daily aspirin, and they could be putting themselves at unnecessary risks.
It's a decades-long belief that seems to be taking some time to debunk. Historically, aspirin has been seen as a tool to help prevent heart disease.
What happened a few years ago was that clinical trial data revealed that in older adults, the benefits of aspirin may not outweigh the risks of aspirin.
In 2019, the American College of Cardiology and the American Heart Association updated their guidelines to say that aspirin should be used infrequently to prevent a first heart attack or stroke for those with no history of cardiovascular disease.
Aspirin is a blood thinner, so it affects platelet function, so it affects clotting and increases the risk of bleeding.
Dr. Ashish Shiraju with Cleveland Clinic is one of the authors of a new study looking at daily aspirin use across the U.S. since the recommendation changed. They found that in 2021, about 1 in 3 patients 60 and older who did not have a history of heart disease were still taking aspirin every day for prevention. Based on that data, they project about 3 million of those people across the U.S. were taking it without medical advice.
If you have heart disease, oftentimes aspirin is required, and stopping aspirin without the doctor's advice is dangerous. But if you're taking aspirin in the absence of heart disease, it's something that no one's advised you to do, and you're 60 years or older, it's time to have a discussion. Disclose that to your doctor.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
The doctor adds that since aspirin is an over-the-counter medication, many don't even think to tell their doctors about the medication. Texas A&M Chancellor John Sharp will retire June of 2025. To read this Texas Tribune story, come to our website, crossroadstoday.com. Inside Out 2 has topped $1 billion at the global box office, pulling in at $1.14 billion worldwide as of Sunday. That's a huge win for Disney's Pixar studio, becoming the first movie to pass $1 billion in ticket sales since Barbie. The National Association of Theater Owners says reaching the billion-dollar benchmark faster than any animated movie in history. No other animated film from Disney's Pixar has generated more than $480 million at the box office since 2019, before the pandemic struck. Have you seen that movie?
No, I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
You need to go now. What's the hype?
No,
I
I
want to
think
know.
they made enough money on it already.
I hate FOMO. I want to go.
Okay, all right, well, let's see. I can just go for the popcorn. Anyway, good afternoon, everyone. We're looking at 94 degrees right now. Boy, it was steamy out there. It's 104. What's what it feels like. That's the heat index. And of course, it was up to about 109. And of course, that's the time we just tell everybody to take it easy. It's, you're going to perspire a lot and you're not going to cool down. Haven't got our high temperature in just yet, but we average normally get about 93, and we've been at a record high of 103. Of course, the big story in the Atlantic and in the tropics is Beryl. We'll have the latest coming up in just a moment. Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's the long holiday weekend. A lot of you probably thinking of driving and all that good stuff. The short term is just plain old sunny and hot, and pretty much everywhere in Texas you're going to be dealing with the heat. The reason is high pressure has built back on top of us and it's sinking the atmosphere. So we are in the mid 90s, but most of the state is in the triple digits. And of course, all of the southern plains are being affected by the dome of high pressure. We did this last couple of weeks ago, and now it's back. But of course, are we getting any showers? At this time, it's going to be very hard to get any shower activity going in our area, although there is a little band coming down out of Louisiana that may affect the Beaumont area in Houston as well, sometime later tonight. Other than that, I don't expect it to get this far to the west. So we, from there, go to the Caribbean, actually the Atlantic. Beryl is barreling, and it's going to be a name you're going to remember. I'll tell you in a minute. Beryl is right now a Category 4. It started over here, really strengthened over the weekend, came in as a Category 4 over the Grenadines, is now out in the Caribbean, and then we'll follow the Caribbean into the Yucatan. And what else? What about us? What about the weekend? It's coming to the Gulf of Mexico, and we're going to have to deal with it. Here's, not the right view, but as you can see the view here, all of the computer models take it right into the Yucatan Peninsula, and we're going to have to watch very carefully. So let's go through the forecast dates. Now, here's we are now as a 4, and then it strengthens to a 4, maybe a 5 before it starts to weaken. We're talking Thursday here. Here's Thursday, right about there. So by the time we get to Friday or Saturday, it'll be right off the, not off the Yucatan coast, but in the Gulf of Mexico. Now, that's as far as the Hurricane Center goes. My 2 cents. Obviously, if the massive momentum here is going to go somewhere. So somewhere right now on Monday or Tuesday after the 4th of July weekend, Veracruz to Brownsville, okay? Somewhere there. People are going to get some effects of the storm. It's a little bit far out, and that's my 2 cents. But if it's in the Gulf, we're really going to have to start feeling it. And in fact, I want to tell boaters that if you're going out there, have a great time over the weekend, just know that by Sunday and certainly Monday, we're going to start getting rough seas as that storm starts approaching the coast. So right now, it looks like the northern Mexican coast, well, with some effects on Texas. Otherwise, between here and there, it's pretty hot. And you like to say the old song, hotter than July. No, this is about as hot as it's going to get. The heat wave goes all the way up here and pretty much the south, and much of Texas are having to deal with it. Tomorrow, we're looking for mostly sunny skies, a 94 down in Port Lavaca. For those of you in Cuero, getting up to about a toasty 97. Are there isolated showers? 1 or 2, that's about the extent of it. Otherwise, take a look at your forecast, because It's going to be hazy. We do have that dust out there. Very hot right on through. Saturday at 20%, Sunday at 30%. Monday is when I believe Beryl will be somewhere along the west coast or the east coast of Mexico. And so we have an increasing rain chance after Monday here in Texas. That's your 7-day forecast, reminding everybody we do have a QR code. Love for you to scan that and put Crossroads Today on your phone. Here's
The Astros, fresh off a month of June in which they had the best record in baseball, back at it today in Toronto. Not a lot of scoring in this ball game. Houston hitless through 4 2/3 until Jeremy Pena ends all that with a 2-out solo homer for the first run of the entire game. The score would remain 1-0 until Yordan Alvarez unloads. Number 17 on the season. 2 big insurance runs right there because Toronto, with a solo shot on the night, got them on the board. Houston had Hunter Brown on the mound today. He has been perhaps the best pitcher in baseball over the last half month or so. Houston now just 3 games back of first place in the AL West. Now the hottest team in the Texas Collegiate League, the Victoria Generals, winners of 9 of the last 10 ball games before last night, but you can't win them all. They do fall to the Brazos Valley Bombers 6-2. They split the 2-game series. The guys are off for about a week before returning to action on the 6th in Lake Charles against the Gumbo Gators. This is the All-Star Week in the TCL. Perhaps the most exciting offseason in all of sports kicked off early this morning, and we had some fireworks pretty much right away. The Spurs making some waves. Chris Paul, the point guard, coming to San Antonio. They're going to pair him up with Wemby. Chris Paul, about as good a basketball mind as there is, especially with the ball in his hands. Wembanyama should feast on passes from Chris Paul, especially around the rim. The deal is for 1 year, worth $11 million. In Golden State, the end of an era is officially here. The Splash Bros, no more Klay Thompson, headed to Dallas on a 3-year, $50 million deal. Thompson, one of the top few greatest shooters of all time, but some major injuries over the last few years really hurt his play. But Klay at times showed he could still ball out and shoot. He should fit well with Luka and Kyrie and brings more championship pedigree to a team that was so close this past year. And another team with a huge addition, the Philadelphia 76ers, getting Paul George on a 4-year, $212 million deal. The 34-year-old George is a 9-time All-Star since being drafted in the first round back in 2010. This will be his 4th team as he still searches for that first ring. One of Major League Baseball's biggest errors did not happen on the diamond, and a former MLB slugger has been laughing all the way to the bank because of it. Today is Bobby Bonilla Day. Bonilla hasn't played baseball in over 2 decades, but he's getting his annual paycheck of over $1 million from the Mets. In 1999, the Mets wanted to get rid of Bonilla, but they owed him $6 million at the time. The Mets owner didn't want to hand over the remainder of the money outright, so Bonilla's agent made a deal that deferred the payments until 2011 with an 8% yearly interest rate. That ballooned the $6 million to a $30 million payout. Long story short, Bonilla has been collecting a $1.2 million check every July 1st since then, and it will continue until 2035. That is it for your sports. Karina, back to you.
Thanks, Zach. We're going to be back in a moment. Experience our streaming service, Crossroads Today Plus. Stream our daily newscast and much more using your Connect TV. Just download Crossroads Today Plus on your Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, or Android TV. Just search Crossroads Today Plus. Now, a teenage sprinting sensation is set to become the youngest ever U.S. male track Olympian. Sunday, 16-year-old Quincy Wilson announced he will compete in the 4x400-meter relay at the Olympic Games in Paris. Wilson's selection comes after a brilliant debut at the U.S. Olympic trials last week, where he took where he twice broke a 400-meter world record. The sprinter has quickly established himself as one of the most promising rising stars in track and field, and now he gets a chance to prove himself on the center stage. What an accomplishment at just 16 years old.
16?
16, and he's
broke
crushing it.
2 world records?
Yeah, he has a bright future ahead of him.
Yeah.
We're going to be hearing from him for a long time.
He's going to be on a Wheeze box real soon.
Oh, yeah. I can already see it.
Yep.
Well, what about this hurricane?
Well, we're on the hot side. We are going to be doing a lot of hot and steamy weather right on through the weekend. I think most of your Thursday weather, 4th of July is hot. Friday's good. Saturday's good. By Sunday, we may start seeing where exactly Beryl is going to land. I do believe we'll have some effects of Beryl, some rain coming in on Monday, Tuesday. I'm, I guess, forecasting that it'll roll into the northern coast of Mexico, somewhere near Tampico. But obviously, we're going to have to be updating you on this situation. And certainly, as you go on vacation, stay in touch, okay? Keep one eye on the weather just to make sure, because boaters are likely to be affected by some rough seas by the time we get to Sunday.
Alrighty, thank you, Mac. And thank you for being with us. We hope to see you back here tonight for 25 News Now at 6. World News Tonight with Dave Amir is up next.